from aperture to shutter, to equivalent exposure, to why certain lenses look a certain way, to what we use, we'll keep that up. Now we're gonna do strobe. We came here to learn. Strobe. Strobe. Give me a new color. Strobe. Strobe. You need to be in complete control of everything there is to do about lighting, right? So why is strobe so awesome for DSLRs, all right? Well, you have an imager right here. Little imager, right? CCD, whatever, it's made out of these days, pixels, got little dots, photo sensitive. All digital images are made of zeros and ones, and that's data, all right? And this could be like a 22 megapixel. Now we got 42 megapixel, all right? Well, when you have all these digital photo sites on your sensor, it's digital, it's a switch, right? Literally at the very core of everything, it's a pixel being exposed by light. And it's either saying it's this way or that way, and it's giving a signal, it's reading something out, everything gets interpreted. Well, what switches really love is a more of an on-off. What I mean by that is like on-off, is a nice clean switch. Because right now what photography does when you're outside, you take a 30th of a second, it's on for 30th of a second, which is forever. In light speed world, 30th of a second, oh, that is an exposure, right? For some odd reason, what I have found, you can still take two photos side by side with a hot light and a strobe. The strobe, in my personal opinion, will always be a little bit snappier and sharper. It just is, because you have an instance of light that's coming out. And that just, photo sensors just love it. It's a lot better now, but a few years ago, you could tell the difference. Everything gets a little bit better. But start at the top, because everything is just going to degrade, right? So what strobe is a burst of light, all right? And so if we know that strobe is a burst of light, that means that when it lands on something that's black, right? Or black, or is white, black is off, all right? So that's off, and this is on. So that burst of light is instantly telling that sensor exactly what it's seeing, color-wise and all that. In my estimation, I think it is the way strobe interacts with sensors on cameras, okay? Now, strobe is super cool because strobe is only controlled, for all intents and purposes, by one thing. Aperture, which is misspelled, so whatever. Aperture. That's it. So if I have a strobe over here, all right, we're gonna get into this big box strobe, and this is old school. I'm not talking about big photo sync, you know, I'm just talking about strobe and a light stand. It's gonna emit a bolt of lightning almost, right? Yay. And it's gonna go through that aperture. I'm gonna meter that. Matter of fact, you just grab me a strobe real quick and plug it in, and we'll talk about it, and I can at least demonstrate kind of what I'm talking about. So strobe, the way the light is done in the strobe is there's a tube like this, okay? And it has electrode here and electrode here, depending on what kind of strobe it goes in. And then it's got like two little bars, and this is the glass, right? The gas. So in that here is gas, xenon or whatever the gas is, and then two electric, and then a charge of a capacitor gets charged up, right? And these are like capacitor cells. So you ever hear the wind of a flash? Or you ever heard that sound? Well, that's what a capacitor getting all the energy to dump it at one time. Because you're literally making lightning bolts. You're making lightning bolts. And because you're making a lightning bolt, this goes off in an instant. So flash duration, I'm not gonna talk about that flash duration, right? But for all intents and purposes, it's instant, okay? It's not a 30th of a second, instant. All right? So, remember we came back in the earlier part of this that we talked about duration being shutter speed and aperture, right? And we have light that falls on us from the sky, the sun, right? It kind of falls on us, right? This all sounded great. In the case of flash, Flash doesn't care about your shutter speed at all. Just doesn't, right? Now there is something called shutter sync. All right, so, and also when you have Flash and you demo it, can I have a reflector on that? Thanks. So this is one of my first Flash. This is an Alien B, right? This is the modeling light. This is the Flash tube. You can see how many times it's gone off. It's all brown and gassy and stuff. So I have a strobe here, right? And now we're gonna let out a burst of light, but we're not gonna, don't look at it. So it's gonna be like this. So I'm gonna test it. So you see the burst of light, right? And now I want you to listen. Just listen, don't look, just listen. You hear that little tick, right? Now I'm gonna make it all the way up, right? I want you to listen. Did you hear that? It's a bigger tick, right? Yeah. Still an instance of light, isn't it? Still kaboom, right? Now close your eyes, right? Full power, right? You can feel that, right? Now, less power. Wait, hold on, I have to dump the capacitors. Now, less power. Feel that? See, there's a difference, but the duration's the same, right? But way more power at full, right? So why is that so cool? Because now we can do cool things. That's bright, you just took your incident meter, and you're like, damn dude, your incident meter, and it said F16 at 125, right? At 100 ISO. But all this light, there's no light coming this way, so that makes you sad. That makes you sad, because there's no light. Makes you very sad, because he's got raccoon eyes. He's got a big shadow underneath his eyes. It's all coming down. But you got a Flash. You just went to Flash school. Now you got a little softbox kicking. You got a softbox standing next to you. And he's like, hell no, I'm not gonna let this light beat me up. I'm gonna beat that light up. So you're like, well, you know what, son? I'm not playing with it. No, F-son is F16, right? Well, I know my Flash. I skipped this part. All right. Let me talk about Flash sync for a second. So your shutter, okay, it opens and then closes up to a certain speed, and then it's not a full opening. At a certain speed, at thousands or so, after 500 a second, it really becomes a slit, and the slit moves across the imager, right? So at like 8,000, it's a very small slit, right? That goes this way and this way. Remember, the light, the Flash, right? The lightning bolt goes off one time. So if I shoot something that's 8,000 shutter speed, my Flash is only gonna expose this little part right here, okay? That's why you have to shoot what they call Flash sync on your shutter. I'm not talking about hyper sync or fast sync they got where strobes can sync up at that new time. I'm talking old school, it's old school stuff. So I know for most high-end cameras will sync at 250, all right? So here's what I'm gonna do, because it opens all the way in the image processor before it closes. But now, we know that 250 is what I'm gonna sync at, right? So 250 on 125, so automatically at 250, guess what I'm gonna do? Now this is my exposure of the sun, right? Well, if I change it to 250, what have I done to the sun? I made it half as bright. Half as bright. I just whooped its ass. Psh, get out of here, son. Right? But my aperture, my strobe is at F16. The power from the strobe is right here at F16. Guess what? Ever seen those flash photography outside and the outside looks a little dark or less exposed and you see the model all like looking all good and stuff like that? That's how they do that. That's how they do that. Because I took all this ambient light coming from the sun, right, at F16, and the only thing I changed, right, was my shutter speed. This is my shutter speed. This is ISO. I took my shutter speed and changed it to 250. So I let in half the amount of light. And I just turned on my strobe and I filled it in with 16. And I got the same exposure on him. But now the sun is half there. And now that's why I should, the next iteration I show you this in the field, right? But That's the cool thing you do with strobe. Now, when you know that about strobe, now you can start beating up on natural light, right?